She gave the dying great wolf her only winter cloak. The Alpha King found her motionless in snow. Before we begin, imagine this. Somewhere in a winter storm, a dying great wolf lies trapped in the snow. A young Omega has only one thing standing between her and the deadly cold: her mother's old winter cloak. She can save herself, or give that warmth to a creature she has never seen before. If you love emotional Alpha King and Omega stories where kindness is stronger than fear, loyalty is worth more than power, and one impossible choice can change destiny forever, you found the perfect place. If stories like these touch your heart, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. It only takes a second, it's completely free, and every subscription helps us continue bringing these unforgettable stories to life. And before we begin, we'd love to know where you're watching from today. Tell us your city, state, or country in the comments below. It's wonderful to see our werewolf family growing in every corner of the world. Thank you so much for being here. Now, let's begin today's unforgettable journey. By the time Sienna Whitmore realized the mountain might kill her before midnight, the people who sent her into the storm would already be drinking beside a warm fire. Hold still. Brielle Hartman raised one pale arm without looking down. Sienna knelt at her feet in Frostpine's great hall, guiding the final silver stitch through a ceremonial cloak worth more than everything she owned. Laughter floated between polished tables. Pine logs snapped in the hearth. Beyond the tall windows, snow drove sideways through the dark. You missed one, Brielle said. Sienna examined the hem. She had not. I'll fix it. Of course you will. Brielle smiled toward two women nearby. It's what Omegas are useful for. Their amusement was soft and practiced. Sienna lowered her gray-green eyes and drew the needle through cloth. At 22, she had learned that some people became bored faster when cruelty received no audience. Her wolf had never fully awakened. No powerful shift. No commanding scent. Frostpine tolerated weakness best when it remained useful and quiet. Finished, she murmured. Brielle turned before Sienna could stand, sweeping ivory fabric across her cheek. Try not to wrinkle it. Sienna gathered her sewing basket. Near the servants' entrance hung her own cloak, dark forest green wool faded at the shoulders, fastened by a small, antler-shaped silver clasp. Her mother had sewn it during her final winter, when illness had already made every breath an effort. Keep warm, little bird. Sienna still heard those words whenever she touched the clasp. She reached for it. Whitmore. Garrick Voss stood behind her. Frostpine's head warden filled the corridor entrance, broad shoulders rigid beneath a heavy coat. Fresh snow clung to his iron-gray hair and had not yet melted along the collar. Sienna glanced toward the outer doors. Garrick had been somewhere outside recently. The Hartman household has a bundle for the North Lodge, he said. Deliver it. Sienna blinked. Tonight. His narrow brown eyes rested on her sewing basket, then on the green cloak in her hand. You know the lodge road better than most. That was true. For years, Sienna had carried repaired gloves, blankets, and uniforms between Frostpine's scattered outposts because sending a seamstress cost less than sparing a patrolman. Whitewood Pass will disappear if the snowfall gets heavier. Then you should not waste time arguing. Mara Caldwell emerged from the sewing corridor. Where is the delivery slip? Garrick's attention shifted to her. Only for a second. The North Lodge needs winter garments. Mara, not paperwork. Sienna noticed his jaw tighten. Mara did too. Send a guard. My wardens have useful work. Brielle, still admiring herself in a tall mirror, gave a small laugh. Surely Sienna knows how to walk through snow. Garrick pointed toward a wrapped bundle beside the service door. Take that and go. Sienna looked at him. Something in his impatience unsettled her, though she could not have said why. Perhaps it was only the weather. Perhaps she was tired. She had spent 12 hours sewing and had eaten nothing since morning. I can deliver it, she said. Sienna, Mara warned. I'll be careful. She fastened the green cloak beneath her chin. Mara stepped closer, adjusting the antler clasp with weathered fingers. Your mother made this to keep you alive. Her voice dropped. Remember that. Sienna gave her a faint smile. I always do. Garrick was watching them. The moment Sienna met his gaze, he turned toward the fire. Minutes later, the great hall doors closed behind her. Warmth vanished. Wind struck hard enough to steal her first breath. Sienna pulled the cloak tight, lifted the bundle against her chest, and started toward Whitewood Pass. She had walked the route often enough to know every marker. The split cedar, the frozen stream, the ridge where the path bent north. Tonight, Each familiar shape faded beneath gathering white. Frostpine's lights disappeared behind her. Snow swallowed her tracks almost as soon as she made them. Halfway toward the lodge, Sienna stopped. At first, she thought the sound was ice splitting from a branch. Then it came again. Low, ragged, alive. She turned toward the trees. Every sensible instinct urged her to continue. Deliver the bundle. Reach shelter. Survive the night. Then, beyond the pines, she saw a dark stain spreading across untouched snow. Sienna's grip loosened. Blood. Far too much of it. And somewhere inside the white darkness, something enormous struggled to draw another breath. Sienna should have walked away. She knew that even before she pushed between the snow-heavy pines and saw the creature bleeding beneath them. The wolf was enormous. Larger than any alpha in shifted form she had ever seen. His silver-gray body stretched across the ground like some fallen legend from an old winter tale. Darker fur ran along his spine, while white marked his muzzle and chest. One amber eye opened as she approached. A growl vibrated through the clearing. Sienna froze. I know, she whispered, though her teeth had begun to chatter. I wouldn't trust me either. His lips pulled back, revealing fangs capable of ending her life before she could scream. Yet he did not rise. He couldn't. Sienna's gaze followed the blood to his hind leg, and her stomach tightened. A steel mechanism had closed above the joint. Silver teeth were buried through fur and flesh. Around the wound, black veins spread beneath exposed skin. Oh God! She set Brielle's delivery bundle beneath a cedar and crouched several feet away. Poison. She had seen silver injuries before when careless hunters came to Mara for torn gloves and whispered about illegal traps in the mountains. But never anything like this. The wolf's breathing came shallow and uneven. Sienna glanced toward Whitewood Pass. The North Lodge was still distant. Frostpine lay behind her. If she ran now, perhaps she could return with help. Her eyes fell on the blood already disappearing beneath fresh snowfall. Perhaps was a dangerous word. I'm going to come closer, she said. The wolf watched her. If you bite me, I'll consider that a disagreement. No growl this time. Sienna moved slowly, palms visible. The closer she came, the more impossible his size seemed. Even wounded, he carried a strange dignity, as if the forest itself had no right to see him fallen. She knelt beside the trap. The metal smelled sharp enough to sting her nose. This is going to hurt. His amber eye narrowed. Yes, I realize that's an absurd thing to tell you. Sienna wrapped both hands around the release bar and pulled. Nothing. She changed position and tried again. The mechanism shifted half an inch before snapping back. The wolf jerked, a broken snarl tearing from his throat. Sorry. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. She removed the sewing scissors from her basket and wedged one handle beneath the rusted spring. Then she pushed. Pain sliced across her palm when the silver edge caught her skin. Warm blood ran over her wrist. Sienna gritted her teeth and leaned harder. The spring groaned. Come on. Another inch. Her arms trembled. Please. The jaws released. The wolf dragged his leg free and collapsed so heavily the ground seemed to shudder. Sienna fell backward, breathing hard. For one foolish second, relief made her laugh. Then the wolf's head dropped. No, she crawled to him. His fur was cold. Far too cold. Wind screamed through the trees, driving fresh powder into the clearing. Sienna looked around desperately and pulled fallen branches against one side of his body, building a crude barrier. It barely slowed the gale. She pressed her fingers near his chest. His heartbeat was there, but weakening. Sienna's own hands had gone numb. Her green cloak held the last pocket of warmth around her body. Mara's words returned with painful clarity. Your mother made this to keep you alive. Sienna touched the antler-shaped clasp. For a moment, she saw her mother's tired hands guiding dark thread through wool. She remembered standing beside a narrow bed at 16, promising she would be careful, promising she would endure. The wolf exhaled, a thin, shuddering sound. Sienna closed her eyes. I'm sorry, Mama. The silver clasp opened. Cold attacked immediately as she pulled the cloak from her shoulders. She spread the green wool over the wolf's massive body, tucking it around his chest and wounded leg. His amber gaze found hers. Don't look at me like that, she murmured. You need it more than I do. Something changed in his expression. Sienna could not name it. She rested one bleeding hand briefly against his white-marked muzzle. This time, he did not bare his teeth. Stay alive. She rose unsteadily, wearing only her thin brown work dress and knitted shawl. The wind cut through both before she took her first step. She looked toward Frost Pine, though its lights were invisible beyond the storm. Someone had to come back for him. Sienna wrapped her arms around herself and started walking. Behind her, beneath the green cloak, the great wolf lifted his head and watched until the snow swallowed her completely. Sienna made it 47 steps before she stopped feeling her fingers. She knew the number only because counting was easier than fear. 48, 49, 50. Her boots sank past the ankles, forcing her to drag each foot free before moving again. Without the green wool around her, the wind slipped through her thin work dress and knitted shawl as if neither existed. Soon the cold no longer seemed to touch her skin. It had gone deeper. Keep moving, she told herself. The words vanished into the gale. Somewhere behind her, the wounded wolf waited beneath cedar branches with her mother's cloak wrapped around his enormous body. If Sienna reached Frost Pine, Mara would listen. Mara would find men, a sled, blankets, a healer. She only had to reach the gate. A dark shape appeared ahead. Her heart jumped, but it was merely a split pine leaning beneath ice. Sienna gripped the trunk and forced herself to think. Whitewood Pass curved east near a frozen stream, then descended toward Frostpine's outer wall. She knew this route better than most. Garrick had said so himself. The memory surfaced strangely. You know the lodge road better than most. Sienna frowned, though even that small movement hurt. Why had he sounded so certain she would take Whitewood? There was no other road to the North Lodge. Of course he was certain. She pushed the thought away. This was no time for suspicion. Snow had erased the stream. Trail markers disappeared beneath ice. When Sienna looked back, her own footprints were already filling. Panic rose. No, she turned left. The trees felt unfamiliar. Right was worse. Her mother's voice returned from an old memory, patient as hands guiding a needle. When you're lost, little bird, don't run just because you're frightened. Sienna closed her eyes and listened. Beneath the roar came timber groaning. Then, faint and distant, a metallic clang. Frostpine's gate bell. Her eyes opened. There. She followed the sound. Her knee buckled on the first slope, throwing her face first into the powder. For several seconds, she stayed there. Close to the ground, everything seemed quieter, almost gentle. Her eyelids lowered. An amber eye appeared in her mind. Stay alive. She had told the wolf that as though survival were an instruction anyone could simply obey. A weak laugh escaped her. Fine. Sienna pushed upright. The bell sounded once more. She walked until dark walls emerged through the white. Relief hurt. Help. Her voice barely carried. She stumbled forward. Please. Torchlight shifted above the palisade. Someone was there. Sienna reached the wooden doors and struck them with both palms. Open the gate. Once. Twice. Her injured hand left a dark smear. There's a wolf in Whitewood Pass. He's caught in silver. I need men and a healer. Voices murmured beyond the timber. Who is it? A guard called. Another man answered, too low for Sienna to understand. Sienna Whitmore, she cried. Tell Mara Caldwell. She'll come. Metal scraped. Hope flared. A narrow viewing panel opened. A young guard looked down at her bare shoulders and bloodied hands. His eyes widened. Please, Sienna said. He's poisoned. The guard glanced over his shoulder. Not toward the watchtower. Toward the covered passage inside the wall. A tall shadow stood beyond the torchlight. Sienna could make out only the edge of a heavy coat. Snow melted from its hem onto the stone. A boot shifted. Leather struck the floor once. The guard's face tightened. Warden's orders. Gates stay sealed until morning. Sienna stared at him. The storm is why you have to open them. Go to the North Lodge. I never reached it. She gripped the door. Listen to me. The trap was silver. The wolf is dying. Again, the guard looked behind him. The shadow did not move. Please, Sienna whispered. The viewing panel slammed shut. She remained against the gate. He'll die. No answer came. Then boots retreated. More than one pair. Sienna stood beneath the wall she had called home all her life. A strange stillness settled inside her. Not anger. Anger required strength she no longer had. She turned toward the forest. Perhaps another patrol would pass. Perhaps she could find a storage shed or reach the lower trail. Perhaps. One step. Then another. By the time she entered the trees, she could no longer remember which possibility she had chosen. Her mother's clasp was gone from her throat. Panic flickered, then memory returned. The green cloak. The wolf. Safe. Good. That was good. The world tilted. Sienna dropped to one knee. She tried to rise and managed 3 uneven paces before her body folded into the snow. Her hands did not catch her. Her cheeks settled against frozen white. Above, black branches moved across a colorless sky. "I'm sorry, Mama," she breathed. Snow gathered in her chestnut hair and along her lashes. Sienna waited for fear. None came. Only exhaustion. Miles away, beneath dark green wool, a massive silver-gray wolf suddenly raised his head. And beyond Whitewood Pass, the Alpha King's search party stopped beside blood on the snow. King Rowan Blackridge knew the blood in Whitewood Pass did not belong to the woman before he ever saw her. Alder. The name left him like a warning. Rowan dropped beside the Crimson Trail, one gloved hand brushing the stained snow as Captain Everett Shaw dismounted behind him. 6 royal guards spread between the pines. 3 hours earlier, men carrying silver weapons had struck the royal convoy from the ridge and vanished into Frostpine territory. Alder had pursued one attacker. Rowan had followed. Now massive paw prints staggered across the pass. Beside them ran smaller boot marks. "Human. Someone found him," Everett said. Rowan was already moving. Broken branches led into a cedar hollow. Poisoned silver burned the air with a metallic bitterness his wolf recognized immediately. Then Rowan saw Alder. The ancient guardian lay against a crude barrier of fallen limbs, his silver-gray body nearly hidden beneath dark green wool. "Alder." Rowan reached him on his knees. One amber eye opened. Alive. Relief hit hard enough to unsteady Rowan's hand. He pressed his palm to Alder's neck. "Easy. I've got you." Alder exhaled and turned his muzzle toward the fabric covering his chest. Rowan frowned. The cloak was too small for him. Hand-sewn, faded along the shoulders. An antler-shaped silver clasp rested near his wounded leg. Blood marked the wool, but beneath Alder's scent lingered something human. Rowan stared at it, and for one terrible instant Whitewood disappeared. 12 years earlier, he had been 20 feet from a battlefield retreat when a rebel wolf tore through his shoulder and drove him into frozen earth. Rowan remembered trying to rise. He remembered failing. Then Alder had covered him with his own body. Teeth bared, fur soaked red. The great wolf had remained over Rowan until royal soldiers reached them, taking claws meant for the future king. Rowan had never forgotten the weight of that protection. Now someone had found Alder dying in winter and done the only thing she could. She had covered him. Rowan touched the green wool. "Who did this for you?" Alder's gaze shifted toward the trees. Everett had already found the ruined trap. "Human blood here," he said. "Cut palm, most likely. Whoever opened this mechanism paid for it." Rowan stood. A line of narrow footprints left the hollow. Small drops darkened the path. She freed him. Everett studied the trail. "Looks that way." Rowan looked once more at Alder beneath the cloak, and gave him her warmth. Neither man needed to say what that meant in this weather. "Pierce stays with Alder," Rowan ordered. "You come with me. Your Majesty, visibility is failing." "Then keep up." The woman's path was direct at first. Soon each step shortened. One print dragged. Another crossed awkwardly over the first. Rowan had tracked wounded soldiers during the Civil War. Bodies confessed their limits through movement. She was freezing, Everett said. Rowan increased his pace. The trail reached Frostpine's outer gate. Blood stained the wood at the height of 2 small hands. Rowan stopped. Her footprints crowded beneath the entrance. She had stood here, waiting. The narrow viewing panel above was closed. Then the tracks turned back toward the forest. Why didn't they let her inside? Everett asked. Rowan studied the doors. Near the covered passage, sheltered from fresh snowfall, damp marks darkened the stone beneath the wall. Several boot prints overlapped there. One set was broad and deep. Someone was watching, Everett said. Something precise and dangerous settled beneath Rowan's ribs. "We will find out who." The returning trail vanished among the trees. 10 minutes later, Everett called his name. Rowan turned. A shape rested near the base of a pine. Small, almost buried. He reached her first. Chestnut hair spread over the white ground, strands frozen against a pale cheek. A thin brown work dress and knitted shawl offered almost no protection. No cloak. Rowan dropped beside her. "Miss?" "Nothing." He swept snow from her face and found a faint scar beneath her jaw. Young. Far too young to look this still. 2 fingers pressed to her neck. "Nothing." Rowan changed position. "Tried again." "Everett." His captain knelt beside him. "I can't find it." The words scraped through Rowan's throat. Behind his eyes rose Alder beneath the green wool. 12 years ago, the great wolf had placed his body between Rowan and death. Tonight, an unknown woman had surrendered her own protection to do the same for him. Rowan tore off his gloves. "Come on." Bare fingers searched beneath her jaw. You do not get to save him and die nameless in the snow. 1 second. 2. Then a flutter touched his fingertips. Faint enough to doubt. Rowan bent closer. There. Again. She's alive. He opened his coat, lifted her against his chest, and wrapped the heavy black fabric around both of them. Her body felt frighteningly light. Get Pierce ready. Everett rose. Frost Pine is closer. Rowan looked toward the wall that had already refused her. No, he stood with the unconscious woman secured in his arms. She goes to Blackridge Keep. Her head rested against his shoulder. Rowan did not know her name. He did not know why she had looked at a dying creature and chosen to leave her own warmth behind. But he knew what such protection cost. Alder had taught him years ago. As Rowan carried Sienna Whitmore away from Frost Pine, he made one silent decision. If she opened her eyes again, the person who watched that gate remain closed would answer to him. Sienna woke to warmth and immediately thought she had died. No wind tore at her face. No frozen ground pressed against her cheek. Firelight moved across a stone ceiling, and something soft covered her to the chin. She tried to lift her head. Pain answered from everywhere. Don't. A man's voice came from beside the bed. Sienna turned toward a lean stranger with sandy brown hair and wire-framed spectacles. He watched her over folded arms. Unless you enjoy making physicians regret their career choices. Her lips felt cracked. Where am I? Blackridge Keep. I'm Dr. Nolan Pierce. Fear cleared the fog in her mind. Blackridge. Royal territory. Sienna pushed against the mattress. Nolan caught her shoulders before she gained an inch. I said don't. The wolf. Your body temperature nearly killed you. The wolf. Her voice broke. Nolan glanced toward the far window. Sienna followed his gaze and realized they were not alone. A tall man stood in the fading light, broad through the shoulders, dressed in black trousers and a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. Thick, dark blonde hair framed a face made severe by stillness. Sienna recognized the cold blue eyes from royal coins and winter proclamations. Alpha King Rowan Blackridge. Her heartbeat lurched. Rowan turned before Nolan looked at her pulse monitor. His attention fixed on Sienna, as though he had heard something no one else had. For one strange instant, she felt equally aware of him. The room seemed to narrow around his presence. Sienna dragged herself upright despite Nolan's protest. Your Majesty. Rowan crossed the chamber. With every step, her pulse accelerated. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I didn't know, she whispered. Know what? That he belonged to you. Silence settled. Sienna looked between the men. I only touched him because of the trap. If Moon Guardians are forbidden to, you think you're being punished? Rowan asked. She lowered her gaze. I don't know why else I'd be here. Something shifted in his expression. Nolan turned away, muttering beneath his breath. Rowan stopped beside the bed. The great wolf is alive. Sienna forgot the king. Forgot her fear. He is. Dr. Pierce removed the remaining silver fragments. The poison is still dangerous, but Alder survived the night. Relief loosened her chest so suddenly that tears filled her eyes. She covered them with one trembling hand. Thank God. Rowan watched her. You almost died. Sienna nodded faintly. But he didn't. Rowan went still. Beneath his ribs, his wolf pressed forward with such sudden force that he had to lock his shoulders. Alder was alive because of her. Yet the reaction moving through Rowan was not gratitude alone, and he distrusted anything he could not name. Why, he asked. Sienna blinked. Why what? Why give him your cloak? His voice remained controlled. Did you recognize the markings on his chest? The royal scent. Understanding crossed her face. He thought she had known, that she had wagered her life for royal favor. The suspicion hurt more than Sienna expected. No, then what did you expect in return? Nothing. Rowan's jaw hardened. Everyone expects something. Sienna studied him. Beneath the authority, she recognized a kind of caution built by old disappointments. He was dying. So were you. Not yet. You knew the cold could kill you. Sienna glanced at her bandaged palm. I knew it might. And you still removed your only protection. Her eyes lifted sharply. How do you know it was my only? She stopped. He had noticed. The realization unsettled her almost as much as his presence. No one in Frostpine noticed what she owned unless it needed mending. Did Alder have anyone else? She asked. The question struck somewhere Rowan had kept guarded for years. 12 winters earlier, Alder had stood over his broken body while battle raged around them. No, Rowan said. Sienna leaned back against the pillows. Then that's why. Her strength faded suddenly. Rowan moved before Nolan did, one hand reaching toward her shoulder. He stopped an inch away. Sienna looked at his hand. Rowan withdrew it. Nolan's eyes moved between them, thoughtful. I thought I could reach the gate, Sienna said. Rowan's expression changed. You did reach it. Her face lost what little color had returned. How do you know? I followed your footprints. The viewing panel returned to her memory. The young guard. The tall shadow. Snow dripping from a heavy coat. One hard strike of leather against stone. Please don't punish the guard. Rowan stared at her. You were denied shelter. He was afraid. Of the storm? Sienna hesitated. No, Rowan's voice lowered. Who was he afraid of? Before she could answer, the infirmary door opened. Everett Shaw entered carrying a leather evidence pouch. Your Majesty. His gray eyes briefly met Sienna's. We examined the trap. Rowan turned. And Everett placed a blackened silver fragment on the table. It wasn't meant for a wild wolf. Sienna felt the room change. The compound in the teeth is military grade. Everett continued. Restricted throughout the Northern Territories. Rowan's voice became dangerously quiet. Who has access? Everett met his king's gaze. Wardens. Sienna stared at the poisoned metal. She thought of Garrick's snow-covered hair. The missing delivery slip. The shadow behind Frostpine's gate. Across the room, Rowan looked at her at the exact moment she looked at him. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Miss Whitmore, he said at last, you are not returning to Frostpine. You cannot keep me here. Sienna's voice was weak, but Rowan heard the steel beneath it. Morning light had barely reached Blackridge Keep, turning the infirmary windows pale gray. I have work. Mara will be worried. You nearly froze to death, Rowan said. That does not make Frostpine safe. It is my home. The words sounded uncertain even to her. Rowan stood beside the cold hearth, arms folded. A military poison was placed in a trap on Frostpine land. Alder was attacked. You found him. Then a gate under Warden authority refused you entry. Sienna's fingers tightened around the blanket. You think Garrick did this. I think facts deserve answers. And until then, you remain under royal protection. Sienna looked away. Protection felt dangerously close to another kind of control. Rowan seemed to read the thought. His expression shifted. I am not making you a prisoner, Miss Whitmore. Then I can leave? A long pause. When Pierce says you can stand without collapsing. From the doorway, Nolan said, for once, the king and medical science agree. Sienna almost smiled. Almost. Everett arrived before noon with Mara Caldwell. The moment Mara entered, Sienna forgot her aching limbs and reached for her. Mara crossed the room quickly, gathering her into careful arms. You foolish, precious girl. Her voice shook. I thought I'd lost you. Sienna closed her eyes against Mara's shoulder. I'm sorry. No, I am. Mara pulled back, cupping Sienna's face. I watched them send you out. Rowan remained silent near the window. Everett placed Sienna's recovered sewing basket on the table. Mara saw the empty cloak hook beside it. Her face changed. Where's the green wool? Alder has it, Sienna said. Mara stared. You gave him that cloak? He was cold. Mara sat heavily. Sienna, that was the only winter garment you owned. Across the room, Rowan's gaze sharpened. Only. Mara turned toward him. Her mother made it 6 years ago. Sienna has patched every tear because she cannot afford another. Sienna flushed. Mara. He asked for facts. Mara's grief hardened. Here's one. That girl repairs fur-lined coats for people who leave scraps on her table as payment. She walks home wearing wool her dead mother stitched because Frostpine has never once wondered whether its seamstress is warm. Rowan said nothing. That silence carried more weight than rage. Everett opened a ledger. There is more. He laid 3 papers before the king. The poison compound requires refined silver nitrate and blackthorn extract. Frostpine received 2 sealed military stores last autumn for border defense. Inventory. Rowan asked. 1 crate is missing. Sienna felt unease crawl through her. Garrick controls the armory. Everett nodded. And patrol assignments. He also changed the Whitewood rotation 3 days before the convoy attack. Rowan's blue eyes went flat, leaving the pass unguarded. For 90 minutes, the room seemed smaller. Sienna remembered Garrick blocking the corridor. The delivery bundle. His insistence that she leave immediately. He knew the storm was coming, she whispered. Rowan looked at her. What? Garrick had snow in his hair when he ordered me to the North Lodge. He'd already been outside. Sienna searched the memory. And the garments. Her breathing changed. I left them beneath a cedar when I found Alder. Everett opened her basket and searched beneath the folded cloth and sewing tools. His eyes narrowed. There is no delivery slip. Sienna stared at him. Everett turned toward the ledger, and no Hartman North Lodge delivery was registered for yesterday. Sienna remembered Mara's question in the Great Hall. Where's the delivery slip? Garrick had never answered it. Brielle's bundle had been prepared. Garrick had pointed to it. Sent her through Whitewood Pass at exactly the wrong hour. Maybe it was a mistake. No one answered. Rowan crossed to the bed. For the first time, Sienna saw no suspicion in his face. Only a terrible understanding. You were not supposed to find Alder, he said. Sienna's heart pounded. Then why send me there? Everett closed the ledger. Perhaps because someone needed an ordinary Omega walking the pass after an assassination attempt. Mara went pale. A witness. Or a body, Rowan said. The words landed softly. Sienna stopped breathing. Rowan immediately crouched beside her chair, lowering himself until their eyes were level. Listen to me. We do not know that yet. But you believe it. He did not lie. I believe you deserve the truth. Sienna thought of the gate closing. Garrick's order. Her hand striking wood while life drained from her body. All her years of making herself small had not protected her. Silence had not made cruel men kinder. She looked at Rowan. Take me back. Mara gasped. Sienna, if Garrick knows I'm alive, he'll hide everything. Everett studied her. Rowan's jaw tightened. Frostpine is dangerous. So was the mountain. She held his gaze. I went into it alone. Something fierce and almost proud moved through Rowan's eyes. Not this time. He rose. Everett, assemble the royal guard. Sienna's pulse quickened. What are you going to do? Rowan reached for his black coat. Open the gate they closed. And by sunset, the Alpha King's banners were moving toward Frostpine. The gates of Frostpine opened before Rowan could order them broken. Sienna sat beside Mara in the royal carriage, staring at the wooden doors she had struck with bleeding hands 2 nights earlier. This time, royal guards lined the road. No one turned away. Rowan entered the great hall ahead of her, Everett at his right shoulder and 12 soldiers behind them. Music died. Brielle Hartman's wineglass remained halfway to her lips. Alpha Dean Hartman rose so quickly his chair scraped across stone. Your Majesty, we were not informed. Neither was Alder when men tried to kill him. Rowan's voice emptied the hall of sound. Garrick Voss stood near the hearth, freshly shaved, uniform immaculate. Sienna saw the instant he recognized her. Surprise entered his narrow brown eyes and vanished. Miss Whitmore, he said. Thank the moon. We feared you lost. Sienna remembered a shadow beneath the gate passage. Snow dripping from a heavy coat. One leather boot striking stone. I reached the gate. Garrick folded his hands behind his back. Emergency protocol required the doors remain sealed. I begged for a healer. People suffering exposure are often confused. Rowan shifted beside her. His wolf pressed close enough to the surface that every alpha in the room felt it, but he did not interrupt. This was Sienna's truth to tell. Everett placed a ledger on the nearest table. Frostpine received 2 sealed military silver stores last autumn. One is missing. Garrick's gaze barely moved. Border inventory falls under several officers. Not according to your signature. Everett opened the book. Alpha Dean looked toward his head warden. Garrick. Administrative circumstance. Everett removed the blackened trap fragment from an evidence pouch. Silver nitrate. Blackthorn extract. The same restricted compound issued to Frostpine. Murmurs spread. Coincidence, Garrick said. Then perhaps this is another. Everett laid down the Whitewood patrol schedule. You reassigned the pass guard 90 minutes before the royal convoy was attacked. Brielle stood. What does this have to do with Sienna? Everett placed the Frostpine delivery registry beside the schedule. The North Lodge shipment. Brielle frowned. There was no shipment. The hall went quiet. Our lodge has been closed since autumn, she continued. Father ordered the water lines drained. Sienna looked at Garrick. You know the lodge road better than most. Her eyes dropped to his polished boots. She remembered snow clinging to his hair inside the great hall. You had already been to Whitewood, she said. Garrick smiled faintly. Careful, girl. That night, before you sent me away. Sienna's voice steadied. There was no delivery slip because there was no delivery. Mara moved closer behind her. Sienna continued. You knew I walked the lodge routes alone. You knew no patrolman would question seeing me there. Garrick's expression hardened. Everett said nothing. He did not need to. Sienna saw the shape of it now. The gate guard looked behind him before he refused me. Her throat tightened. There was someone beneath the covered passage. A heavy coat. Snow melting from the hem. Garrick's jaw flexed. You were there. Alpha Dean stared at him. Answer her. Garrick glanced toward the side door. Rowan spoke one word. Stay. Alpha command rolled through the hall. Several wolves lowered their heads. Garrick stopped. Then his hand vanished beneath his coat. Sienna saw silver. Rowan. She moved on instinct. Rowan caught her around the waist and turned. The knife cut across his upper arm instead of reaching his chest. Blood darkened his sleeve. Everett struck Garrick from the side and drove him against the floor. Guards surrounded them. Mara cried Sienna's name. Rowan remained standing. His blue eyes had gone terrifyingly still. Alive, he ordered. I want him alive. Garrick laughed against the stone. Still protecting her? Sienna looked at the man who had sent her into Whitewood with a false bundle. Why me? Garrick's smile disappeared. Everett tightened his hold. Answer. Sienna raised a hand. No. She stepped closer herself. Her knees trembled, but she did not lower her eyes. Let him look at me. Garrick did. Why me? She asked again. For the first time, his contempt showed without disguise. Because you were convenient. The words struck harder than shouting. You walked those roads. You had no father demanding answers. No mate. No rank. Sienna's breathing slowed. Garrick leaned his cheek against the stone and gave her one final, cruel smile. By morning, you were supposed to be what Frost Pine had always made you. Rowan's wounded hand curled. Someone no one would ask about. Silence followed. Sienna felt 22 years of lowered voices and closed doors gather inside her. Once, those words would have broken something. Now she looked around the great hall. Mara stood behind her. Everett held the man who had tried to erase her. Brielle could not meet her eyes. Alpha Dean looked suddenly old. And Rowan, bleeding because he had turned a blade away from her, waited without speaking for her. Sienna faced Garrick. You were wrong. Everett pulled him to his feet. As the guards dragged Garrick toward the lower cells, a deep growl rolled through the hall. Every wolf froze. The doors stood open. Nolan Pierce was there, breathless and visibly furious. Beside him, one bandaged hind leg held carefully above the floor, towered Alder. For the record, Nolan said, I advised against this. The great wolf ignored him. He ignored Alpha Dean, the royal guards, even Rowan. His amber eyes found Sienna across the crowded hall. Then the ancient moon guardian walked directly toward the woman Frost Pine had spent years teaching itself not to see. Alder stopped an arm's length from Sienna and lowered his massive head. No one in Frost Pine moved. Sienna could hear Nolan breathing hard near the doors and the faint drip of Rowan's blood striking the floor. Alder, Rowan said, not as a command, but a warning born of concern for the guardian's injured leg. The great wolf ignored him. His amber eyes remained on Sienna. She slowly lifted one hand. You shouldn't be walking. Alder pressed his white-marked muzzle into her palm. A collective breath swept through the hall. Sienna's fingers disappeared into silver-gray fur. She remembered that same face rigid with pain beneath the cedar trees, fangs exposed because fear was the only defense he had left. Now his eyes closed. What does this mean? Brielle whispered. Rowan stared at Alder as though an old law had stepped out of history. Moon guardians do not bow to strangers. Sienna looked down. Alder had bent one foreleg. His enormous body lowered before her. Alpha Dean Hartman rose unsteadily. That has not happened in generations. It has never happened in my lifetime, Rowan said. Sienna tried to pull her hand away, overwhelmed by the hundreds of eyes fixed on her. Alder gently followed until his nose touched her wrist again. A warmth moved through her chest. Not heat from the room. Something quieter. Deeper. Her wolf, silent for 22 years, stirred. Sienna gasped. Across from her, Rowan's head lifted sharply. His pupils widened. The air between them changed. Pine. Winter frost. A wild scent she had never noticed before wrapped around her senses, and somewhere inside her, a soft presence opened its eyes. Sienna, Rowan breathed. Her name sounded different in his voice. Alder stood between them, watching. Is this? She could not finish. Rowan took one step forward, then stopped himself. Every instinct in his body seemed to pull toward her, yet he kept his hands at his sides. Possibly. Possibly, Nolan muttered. Your Majesty, half the room can scent the bond. Rowan gave him a murderous look. Nolan adjusted his spectacles. Medical observation. A nervous laugh escaped Sienna before she could stop it. Rowan's expression softened. Then he looked at the people surrounding them. Clear the hall. Within minutes, only Rowan, Sienna, Alder, Nolan, Everett, Mara, Alpha Dean, and Brielle remained. Everett had already taken Garrick below. Rowan allowed Nolan to bandage the cut on his arm, while Sienna sat beside Alder. Garrick will stand royal trial, Everett said upon returning. The gate guards have agreed to testify. To admit he threatened their families if they opened the doors. Alpha Dean closed his eyes. This happened under my authority. Brielle stared at the floor. Father, no, he looked toward Sienna. I spent years calling Frostpine orderly because I never asked who paid for that order. Sienna said nothing. An apology could not return the hours outside the gate. Alpha Dean seemed to understand. He did not ask forgiveness. The wardens will be removed pending review. Food distribution and labor assignments will be audited. Mara Caldwell will have a seat on the Winter Council, if she accepts. Mara folded her arms. I have conditions. For the first time, Rowan almost smiled. I imagine you do. Brielle approached Sienna after her father left. Without servants, silk, or admiring friends around her, she looked younger. I didn't know about Garrick. Sienna met her eyes. I believe you. Relief appeared too quickly. But you knew about me. Brielle went still. You knew I worked 12 hours and walked home in one old cloak. You knew because you laughed. No accusation sharpened Sienna's voice. That made Brielle's eyes fill. I'm sorry. Sienna nodded once. Then noticed the next person. Brielle lowered her head. Later, as dusk settled, Rowan found Sienna alone near the carriage, Alder resting beside her. You saved me from Garrick's knife, he said. You saved me from the snow. That does not make us even. I wasn't keeping count. Rowan looked toward the mountain. The bond is real. Sienna's heart stumbled. I know. My position gives me power over almost everyone I meet. His gaze returned to hers. I will not use it to take an answer from you. Sienna studied the king who had once asked what she expected in return. And if I say no? His jaw tightened, but he answered without hesitation. Then Alder will continue disobeying me to visit you, and I will learn to endure it. Sienna smiled. Truly smiled. Alder opened one amber eye. Rowan exhaled. Even he thinks that was amusing. Sienna touched the empty place at her throat where the antler clasp usually rested. Rowan noticed. Your cloak is at Blackridge Keep, he said. Nolan wanted to burn it. What? I threatened his funding. From behind them, Nolan shouted. It was soaked in blood and poison. Sienna laughed again. Rowan simply watched her, as though the sound answered a question he had been afraid to ask. Then he held out his uninjured hand. Come back to Blackridge with me, Sienna. Not as my prisoner. Not as my obligation. She looked at his open palm. As what? Rowan's voice softened. As yourself. We can discover the rest when you're ready. For most of her life, Sienna had accepted whatever place others left for her. This time, she chose. She placed her hand in his. And far away at Blackridge Keep, beside a healer's fire, her mother's green cloak waited to come home. 3 days later, Sienna stood before a fire at Blackridge Keep while Rowan placed her mother's cloak into her hands. For several seconds, she could only stare. The dark forest green wool had been cleaned and carefully mended, yet no one had tried to erase what had happened to it. Neat stitches followed the tear near the edge she had wrapped around Alder's injured leg. A faint shadow remained where blood had soaked through. Even the antler-shaped silver clasp carried a thin scratch from the trap. Sienna ran her thumb over it. You left the marks. Mara said your mother believed a repair should remember what it survived. Sienna looked up. Rowan's mouth shifted slightly. She has spent 2 days instructing my royal tailors. They fear her more than they fear me. A laugh caught behind Sienna's tears. She lifted the wool to her face. Beneath clean soap lingered the faintest trace of cedar. Thank you. Rowan inclined his head. He did not tell her to forget Whitewood. He did not call the cloak ruined. Somehow that mattered. Garrick Voss's trial ended that afternoon. Everett's investigation had uncovered payments from 3 southern conspirators who hired Garrick to expose the royal convoy route and provide restricted silver compound for Alder's death. The missing military crate was recovered beneath Garrick's storehouse. Patrol records, the missing delivery entry, testimony from the gate guards, and Garrick's attack in the Great Hall completed the case. He was stripped of rank and sentenced by the royal court for conspiracy and attempted murder. Alpha Dean Hartman remained leader of Frostpine under direct council review. Mara accepted a seat on the Winter Council only after securing paid labor standards, emergency gate authority during severe weather, and guaranteed cold-weather clothing for lower-ranked workers. Brielle sold 6 ceremonial gowns to fund the first supply shipment. She sent no letter asking Sienna to know about it. Mara told her anyway. By the first snowfall of the following week, Sienna could cross Blackridge's western courtyard without Nolan following 3 steps behind with a blanket. He now remained beneath the archway. 10 minutes, he called. 15. 12. Sienna considered. Agreed. Beneath an ancient pine, Alder rested with his bandaged hind legs stretched before him. Sienna sat beside the great wolf and fastened the green cloak at her throat. You caused a great deal of trouble, she told him. One amber eye opened. I had a quiet life before you. Alder lowered his enormous head into her lap. Sienna smiled and worked her fingers through the silver-gray fur. Yes, I know. I made the choice. He has that effect on people. She knew Rowan was there before she turned. The strange awareness no longer frightened her. He approached without guards, a folded black cloak over one arm. Sienna looked at it. Nolan sent you. Nolan threatened me. The Alpha King defeated by a physician. This information cannot leave the courtyard. Snow drifted between them. Sienna smiled, but Rowan's expression grew thoughtful. There is something I should have told you sooner. Alder raised his head. Rowan glanced at him. Apparently, I have an audience. You always do. Rowan knelt before Sienna. The bond between us did not begin in Frostpine's great hall. Her smile faded. I felt something at Blackridge. So did I. She remembered waking in the infirmary and becoming aware of him before he spoke. The way his attention had shifted when her heartbeat raced. Rowan continued. Alder's acceptance did not create the bond. The oldest royal records call what he did the Guardian's witness. A moon guardian can recognize what already exists. Sienna looked at Alder. So he knew before we did. Rowan's eyes narrowed at the wolf. He appears pleased with himself. Alder closed his eyes. Sienna laughed softly. Rowan waited until she looked at him again. A bond is not permission. The humor left his face. Saving Alder did not purchase a crown. And I did not carry you out of Whitewood, so you would owe me your life. Sienna's fingers tightened gently in the great wolf's fur. Rowan opened his hand between them. I am asking whether I may choose you while you are free to choose me. Once, Sienna would have searched his face for the answer expected of her. She would have measured her words against rank, usefulness, consequence. This time, she simply listened to herself. Yes. Rowan closed his eyes for half a heartbeat. When they opened, the guarded king she had met in the infirmary seemed very far away. Sienna shivered. His gaze dropped immediately to her hands. Don't. Rowan was already unfolding the black cloak. I am not cold. Your fingers disagree. You are impossible. I've been told. He settled the heavy fabric over her shoulders. Black wool covered the green without hiding it. Her mother's antler clasp remained visible at her throat. Sienna became still. Snow gathered on the courtyard stones. Once, weather like this had swallowed her footprints while a closed gate stood behind her. Now Rowan noticed the smallest tremor in her hands before she did. He sat beside her and drew the black cloak closer around them both. Alder leaned his great body against her other side with a satisfied breath. Sienna looked down at the 2 layers of wool, her mother's green beneath Rowan's black. One had carried her through every winter she believed she must survive alone. The other asked for nothing before offering warmth. Sienna lifted her face to the falling snow. For the first time, she watched winter return without wondering whether anyone would notice if she disappeared. Because someone already had.